This is that time of year when the Rondo Award nominations have been announced. They are available at the website, rondoaward.com. So Tracy and I are going to spend a few minutes talking about not all the categories, because that would take about an hour. We'll highlight some of the more interesting ones. So Tracy, let's start with the best film of 2024. And among the many nominees are some films we've seen: The Substance, Longlegs, The New Salem's Lot, and Nosferatu. Now, very interesting, Late Night with the Devil was not included in this category, but was nominated in the independent films category. So looking at these movies, and there's a lot of other ones besides the one I mentioned, what would your pick be for best horror film of 2024?
Honestly, I would have to say Nosferatu. I really enjoyed the film. I thought the atmosphere was incredible, and I really liked Bill Skarsgård in his acting, and he was phenomenal in this role. I mean, I think this film has to take the win. Fingers crossed. How about you?
I agree. It's an absolute masterpiece. It's a classic. It was the first film I've watched in theater since the pandemic, and it ended up being a good choice. I saw it the day after Christmas. Absolutely love it. Robert Eggers did supremely well with this. It's shameful that it was not nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I'm still puzzled as to why that was the case. There were a lot of good movies. This was a strong year. 2024 was very good for horror films. Late Night with the Devil was terrific. Longlegs with Nicolas Cage was great.
Yes.
Of course, The Substance did end up being nominated for Best Picture. I know you didn't really care that much for The New Salem's Lot. I thought it was pretty good. And there were some other worthwhile films too, like The New Omen. Very strong year, very deep year for good horror films. But yes, clearly in our minds, Nosferatu at the top of the list. Now, for best independent or streaming film, we do have Late Night with the Devil, which was put into this category, and it certainly leads the way. Our friend, director Ansel Faraj, saw his film, The Great Nick D, receive a nomination. It's a good movie. We both have seen it, but not really a horror film, more of a comedy drama. I guess the horror connection, it does feature the three actors from Dark Shadows, Catherine Lee Scott, David Selby, and the late Lara Parker, and they all have memorable roles here. Then there is a film that we really haven't talked about on this show, but it's a movie you like a lot, and you recommended to me. I thought it was quite good too, and that is Humane. Tell us about this one, Tracy.
Yeah, so it's a great movie. It is a project by Caitlin Cronenberg. So her father is the iconic David Cronenberg. And Humane is actually Caitlin's first horror production. And I feel she hit this one right out of the park. It is like a dystopian type thriller. It's set in the future. There's huge issues with population control. And one of the measures that the world's government basically has decided is a voluntary euthanasia program. So basically, this story centers around the decision of the father of this family makes that he and his wife are going to participate in this voluntary program. But when his wife decides at the last minute that she does not want to participate and makes a run for it, all chaos breaks out in this film. It is, although it's horror, it's also a very dark comedy at the same time. You got some really great people in this film. You have Emily Hampshire from Schitt's Creek, and Sharp Tongue Stevie. She does the same type of humor in this film, and it's wonderful. And you've got Peter Gallagher, and then Enrico Colantoni. Is that how you say that? I can never say that right. And just such a wonderful blend of cast. And just when you think you've seen it all, you haven't, because here comes the next punch or the next
Yeah.
stab, or whatever is going on. But man, it was good. It was really interesting, and I think Caitlin captured this film really well. And I'll be honest, like I mentioned to you, I was really surprised to see it nominated for a Rondo, but I'm really happy to see it's on this list. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you make some great points. Colin Tony, to me, was the most interesting character. He's the guy who shows up from the government to collect the bodies. And he plays it half seriously, but also half tongue in cheek. And he's kind of an annoying guy, but at the same time, he's very determined to collect the 2 bodies that have been promised to him. And when one of the bodies is not delivered as promised, he's demanding a substitute, which creates all sorts of problems. He's great. I think he plays that part just the right way. In a lot of ways, I think he makes the film. I hadn't seen Peter Gallagher in a long time in a movie. I thought he was retired, but he plays the husband who kind of leads this, as you say, voluntary euthanasia effort. I mean, of all the things to volunteer for, man, that's one I'm not interested in. Sorry. Take a pass on that.
They get a good payout, though, I guess. So,
well, yeah, the family gets a lot of money, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Except the volunteers don't see any of it. That's the one problem. So, yeah, worthwhile film. And would you vote for Humane?
Oh, Bruce, that's a horrible question. There's so many great films nominated in this one category. It would be so hard for me to choose. I mean, I loved Late Night with the Devil. I mean, that was like a huge movie. I loved Ansel's movie, The Great Nick D. Not horror, but man, such a great movie. Humane is great. Like, I would have a really difficult time. I think these films, they're each worthy in their own, category.
Yeah.
Like, I would be happy with any of them. How about you? Do you have like a particular one you think would be a winner?
I think I'd have to go with Late Night with the Devil because before Nosferatu came out, I really felt that was the best horror film of the year. And then Nosferatu edged it out, maybe more than edged it out. I still gave Late Night with the Devil 4 stars. So that's a classic. Yeah. So I think I'd probably have to give it, by default, I'd have to go with it in that independent category. Although I could have seen it in the other category as well. So yeah, I guess Late Night with the Devil would be my choice. But you're right. The other 2 movies, Humane and The Great Nick D, some of the other films we really did not see. I know I did not see them. So I can only judge the ones that we mentioned there. But I'd go with Late Night with the Devil in that independent or streaming film category. Let's talk, Tracy, a little bit about some of the other categories which feature past guests we've had on this program. Some of the people that we know that have received Rondo nominations. You've got the Best Book of the Year category, nonfiction. So 2 friends of ours have been nominated. One is Greg Menk, who co-authored Scripts from the Crypt, The Ghost of Frankenstein. He did that with another prolific author named Tom Weaver, whom we've yet to have on the show. We actually had hoped to have him on to talk about Creature from the Black Lagoon, but there were some technical difficulties. We still have to work that one out. So Greg got nominated. Greg's a great writer. And another fantastic writer, and he's been a 2-time guest with us, is Gary Rhodes. And he wrote the book Vampires in Silent Cinema. Haven't yet read that. I'm waiting for the paperback version to come out because the hardback is rather expensive. It's over $100. And Gary actually told us when he was on the show, wait for the paperback to come out. So I'm still waiting to read that one. But both Gary and Greg are great, great writers. Hopefully they'll get some support in that Book of the Year category, nonfiction. Then you have Best Classic Monster Fiction. And one of our first guests that we had on was Tucker Christine. His literary magazine, which is phenomenal, Dracula Beyond Stoker, has received a nomination. Very glad to see that. For some reason, it wasn't nominated last year, which didn't seem right to me, but it is nominated this year. It's a great magazine which explores the legend of Dracula, and it features short story adaptations based on Bram Stoker's work. Tucker just came out with his own annotated version of Dracula, and it's great. I just got it in the mail yesterday, started thumbing through it, and it explains a lot of the kind of archaic language, archaic terms, maybe some of the literary things that we don't quite understand today. He explains it in really everyman language, makes it very understandable. So I hope that his magazine, Dracula Beyond Stoker, gets very strong support. Yeah, then we talk about best event of 2024. And these are hard to judge unless you were actually at these events. They're one-time live presentations, most of the time not recorded. But Richard Clemenson, who was on our show not that long ago, he's the publisher of Little Shop of Horrors, and he received a nod for his Q&A at a showing of Brides of Dracula, which is one of his favorite films of all time. He did that in Des Moines, Iowa, a town that I know neither of us have ever been to. I wish I had seen the Brides of Dracula presentation because I love the movie, and Richard knows just about everything about Hammer. Have you seen Brides of Dracula, by the way?
I don't think I have. There's quite a number of those types of movies that I haven't seen, and I'm slowly working my way through them.
It's really good. If you have a chance, and I know you have a long list, The Brides of Dracula is really well done. Peter Cushing is in it. Christopher Lee is not in it. He didn't want to come back. That was the direct sequel to Horror of Dracula, which came out in the late 50s.
Right.
But even though Lee is not in it, and even though Dracula is not in it, there are these brides. There's another vampire played by a different actor, and it's really a good film. You'd think without Christopher Lee, they would have struggled, but Hammer hit a home run with that one. Also getting a nod for Best Event of 2024, Greg Menk, once again, and our friend Frank Dell'Ostrito, they received a nomination for their talk called Historians on the House. And this was about House of Frankenstein. Remember, we did a show about that back in December.
Right.
Their talk was delivered at Monster Bash in Mars, PA. Obviously, neither of us were at Monster Bash. We didn't see this talk, but I've seen both Greg and Frank in action. They're both great public speakers as well as being terrific authors. So I can only imagine the two of them together did a phenomenal job. So they're in that category. And for those that want to enter a ballot, you can do so. Just visit the website, rondoaward.com, RONDO award.com. You can fill out the ballot. It's a very long ballot. Don't feel like you have to do every category, especially if you're not familiar with the entries in the category. You can do as little or as much of the ballot as you want. You could do one category. Like if you wanted to go best podcast and write in the ghostly gallery, nobody would hold that against you. That would not be illegal to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fill in your choices. Yeah. And then you send it to this email, taraco@aol.com. That's TARACO @AOL.com. I've already sent in a ballot, but the deadline is April 20th. So you have some time. And you told me, Tracy, you were going to take a lot of time on your ballot. You're going to try to do most of the categories, right?
I am. So that's kind of on the agenda within the next week or so. And I'm going to slowly pick away at it and take a look. I also noticed that in Best Podcast Best Horror Host, The Mummy and the Monkey is nominated. So they're nominated in the horror.
I missed that.
Horror Host.
I didn't see that for some reason.
Yeah, they are. So I think, there's so many great people that I noticed just kind of like going through the list. It's going to be difficult to make my selections, but that's why it's going to take me a little bit longer to go through it. But I'm going to nominate the Ghostly Gallery podcast for best podcast. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yep, you can do write-ins in, I think, just about any category. And there's lots of other stuff. There's the best TV series. One of the shows that I saw this past year is From, which I think was in its 3rd season. Very, very good series. The new Dexter series was nominated. The most recent season of Chucky got nominated. I thought Chucky fell off a little bit. I think they started to go off the rails on that one. But if you want to vote for it, you can. It's one of the TV series candidates that's featured on the ballot. But there's a lot of categories: TV, films, streaming, podcasts, books, literature, best magazines. All of that is featured at the rondoaward.com website. And again, just cut and paste, fill in what you want to fill in, and send it to taraco@aol.com. Again, one more time, that's TARACO@aol.com. Well, Tracy, thank you very much for this past hour or so. We appreciate your hard work as always. Thanks.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. This has been another great episode. It was great chatting with everybody today.
We appreciate everybody joining us, including Tracy, including our guests, including all of you listeners as well. We thank you for joining us in this Museum of the Macabre, and we do hope to see you again next time right here in the Ghostly Gallery.